are moments in history when time slows down. Not because the world becomes calm, but because one man steps into the fire and refuses to blink, while others wait, hesitate, calculate. He moves, not because he is certain, but because he is clear. Winston Churchill didn't win wars with just tanks and troops. He won with thought, with vision sharpened by pressure, with judgment forged in the crucible of consequence, with the ability to see not just what was, but what must be. This is not mere intelligence. It's not about IQ or pedigree. It is strategic thinking, disciplined, deliberate, dangerous in the hands of those who dare. The world remembers Churchill for his speeches, but behind the words were decisions that altered the fate of nations. Because they were built on 6 disciplines he carved into his soul like commandments on stone. These disciplines are not tricks. They are not formulas. They are mindsets, habits, ways of perceiving and executing under pressure. They are not reserved for generals or prime ministers. They belong to anyone who chooses to think like a leader. When the stakes are real, when the cost is high, and when time runs short. So, understand this now. Strategic thinking is not just about solving problems. It's about shaping the battlefield before the first shot is fired. It's the ability to sit in silence while others scream, to move decisively when others freeze, to see the storm and step toward it. Churchill once said, "Difficulties mastered are opportunities won." But he didn't react to difficulty. He prepared for it. He trained his mind like a soldier sharpens a blade. And in a world where distractions multiply, where attention is fragmented, where urgency overwhelms clarity, this discipline has never been more vital. You are not here to drift. You are not here to survive the day. You are here to shape it, to step back, look beyond the fog, and ask not just what should I do, but what must be done to win. That's where we begin. Because the first discipline, the foundation of all strategic thought, is the ability to stand above the noise, to rise beyond the chatter and chaos and see with perspective, not through the eyes of panic, but from the vantage point of purpose. And that demands something rare: stillness. In the theater of urgency, stillness looks like laziness to the undisciplined. But to the strategist, stillness is where the war is won before it begins. Churchill didn't rush. He listened. He watched. He let the enemy make the first noise, the first move. And in that silence, he saw the shape of the storm. Strategic thinkers do not react. They respond. And response requires space, mental, emotional, philosophical. So while others drown in information, you must become a lighthouse, elevated, focused, immovable. You gather data. Yes. You listen to counsel, yes, but you do not let the noise dictate your path. This is how Churchill faced Hitler. Not with brute strength, not with bravado, but with the poise of a man who refused to be rattled by appearances. He once said, "True genius resides in the capacity for evaluation of uncertain, hazardous, and conflicting information. That is stillness in action." While bombs dropped, he didn't flinch, because his decisions had already been forged in the quiet. Hours in the war room of thought, not noise. This is where you must build your foundation. Before you speak, before you strike, before you solve, think, not in fragments, but in wide, long, deep strokes of thought. Don't just think about today. Ask, what are the consequences of this decision a year from now? What domino does it knock down 10 steps away? That is how you gain leverage. That is how you take one step and shift the entire board. But you can only do this if you first master the courage to pause. Stillness is not the absence of thought. It is concentrated thought. It is mental discipline wrapped in calm. And when you've learned to command your mind to be still in a world of chaos, you unlock the second discipline clarity. The kind of clarity that cuts through fear like a blade. The kind that doesn't ask for certainty, but seeks alignment. Clarity is not a gift. It is not stumbled upon like luck. It is summoned, forged by fire, distilled by pressure, and demanded by those who refuse to lead in fog. Churchill understood this. He didn't begin with a perfect plan. He began with a clear outcome. Victory. Not negotiation, not compromise. Victory. When he took office in 1940, the sky above Britain was black with bombers. The world told him to surrender, to find a middle ground, to preserve what was left. But Churchill looked through the smoke and saw something different. Not just survival, but sovereignty. He declared, "You ask, what is our aim?" I can answer in one word: victory. That's clarity. It doesn't mean knowing every step. It means knowing the destination with such conviction that every step, no matter how dark, moves in alignment. Most people never win because they never decide what winning looks like. They drift. They dabble. They try to hedge every bet. But strategic minds don't ask, "What's safe?" They ask, "What's necessary?" If your vision is vague, your actions will be scattered. If your aim is unclear, your execution will be erratic. Clarity eliminates noise. It kills hesitation. It silences the critics in your mind. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. The world does not lack talent. It lacks people with the courage to decide what they truly want and the discipline to pursue it relentlessly. Churchill once said, "To each, there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and asked to do a very special thing. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified. Clarity prepares you. It says, 'This is who I am. This is what I do. This is where I'm going.' And everything else, discarded, deleted, irrelevant. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. You are not built to chase every flame. You are built to become fire itself. And once you have clarity, you do not wait for perfect conditions. You create them with vision. Vision is not sight. Sight is what the eyes see. Vision is what the soul demands. Every strategist, every builder of empires, every revolutionary began with something no one else could see: an idea, a mission, a future carved from fire and imagination. Henry Ford saw a car in every driveway when the world still traveled by horse. Disney saw castles in swamps. Napoleon Hill saw greatness in ordinary men. And Churchill, he saw freedom when all of Europe was falling into chains. He wasn't led by hope. He was pulled by vision. A vision so vivid, so visceral, it burned in him like prophecy. It didn't matter that Hitler had momentum. It didn't matter that the empire was crumbling. Churchill saw something the darkness couldn't touch. You must do the same. Your current circumstances are not your destiny. What you see in your mind must become louder than what you face in the mirror. Vision is power because it bends reality. It doesn't ask for permission. It declares, "This is what will be," and moves forward as if the world already agrees. But here's the secret. Vision is not found. It is forged. Forged in the quiet moments. Forged in rejection. Forged when no one believes in you, not even you. It is the voice that speaks when every door closes. Do you have that voice? Because once you do, once the vision is etched into your heart like scripture, the world will move. Doors will open. People will follow. But none of it matters if you don't have the discipline to keep that vision alive. Through adversity. And that brings us to the fourth discipline purpose. Not a slogan, not a marketing tagline, but a reason so deep, so personal, that it will drag you through fire and keep walking. Purpose is the engine that doesn't stall when the world collapses. It is the reason behind the reason, the fuel that doesn't burn out when applause fades. When the money dries, when the spotlight turns. Churchill didn't lead because it was convenient. He didn't rise because the conditions were comfortable. He rose because he believed without condition that his life was meant to serve something greater than himself. That's purpose, not ambition, not success, not ego. Purpose is sacrifice. Wrapped in steel, it's the quiet answer to the question, why are you still standing? Most people quit not because they're weak, but because they're unclear about why they began. Purpose gives pain a place. Purpose turns struggle into strategy. It gives suffering meaning. And when your purpose is forged in conviction, when it's tied to something larger than your paycheck, your reputation, your timeline, you become unbreakable. Churchill's purpose wasn't to be remembered. It was to preserve civilization. He saw Nazi tyranny not as a political problem, but as a moral war for the soul of humanity. He wasn't campaigning. He was commanding history to bend. This kind of purpose cannot be borrowed. It must be chosen. It must be owned so deeply that when doubt knocks, purpose answers. And here's what no one tells you. Purpose isn't found in perfect moments. It's found in breakdowns, in silence, in defeat, in those hollow nights when the world forgets you, and the only thing left is a whisper that says, you were born for more. When you have that, when you live by that, your steps become deliberate. You no longer chase outcomes. You chase alignment. And that alignment unlocks the next discipline. Discipline itself. Discipline is not a punishment. It is not restriction. It is not drudgery. Discipline is freedom. It is the structure that builds destiny brick by brick. Churchill lived with relentless structure. Even when bombs fell on London, he kept a schedule. He rose. He wrote, he reviewed every telegram, every front, every move. Because he understood this, in chaos, routine is revolution. When others panicked, Churchill lit his cigar and went to work. When others waited, he wrote. He believed that action without reflection is wasted energy, and that thinking without execution is fantasy. Discipline is what turns strategic thought into results. It is the bridge between ideas and impact. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb in one spark of brilliance. He disciplined himself through 10,000 failures. Carnegie built steel empires not through bursts of inspiration, but by mastering boring, daily, unshakable process. You can dream all you want. You can visualize, affirm, manifest. But without discipline, your vision dies of starvation. And not the big, dramatic acts of discipline, but the small, invisible ones. The decision to sit with your thoughts when distractions scream. The commitment to review the plan. When your body says not today. The strength to say no to everything that doesn't serve the mission. Churchill wasn't a superhero. He was a disciplined man who showed up every day, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. And that's what separates leaders from the lost. Not brilliance. Consistency, discipline sharpens clarity. It sustains purpose. It brings vision to life. But even the most disciplined leader must face what no plan can predict. What no routine can prevent change. And that is where the next discipline lives: adaptability. Adaptability is not weakness. It is not compromise. It is not the surrender of values. It is the evolution of strategy, the power to bend without breaking, to pivot without panic, to change course without losing direction. The most dangerous leaders are not the ones with rigid plans. They are the ones who respond to reality faster than anyone else. Churchill did not cling to dogma. He clung to outcomes. He adjusted, recalibrated, absorbed new data, reimagined old alliances because the mission demanded it. When France fell in days, he didn't crumble. He shifted. When allies wavered, he persuaded. When resources ran dry, he innovated. Because he understood what the rigid never learn, the plan is not sacred. The purpose is. Adaptability is not reactive. It is proactive agility. It is preparing your mind to expect the unexpected and to meet it not with fear, but with fascination. Great strategists do not resist change. They absorb it, use it, wield it. Abraham Lincoln reshaped his war cabinet a dozen times before finding the right configuration. Steve Jobs adjusted Apple's direction multiple times before changing the world, and Churchill he switched parties in Parliament twice before he became Prime Minister because he cared more about principle than political tribe. He said, "To improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often." This is not about indecision. It is about evolution. Adaptability means you know exactly what you're aiming for, and you're willing to drop everything except that. It takes humility. It takes courage. It takes a mind that refuses to cling to yesterday's map while navigating today's battlefield. And here's the truth. Adaptability is not a gift you're born with. It is a decision, a skill, a discipline. You train yourself to observe without judgment, to shift without fear, to move without losing momentum. And when that's in place, when clarity, vision, purpose, discipline, stillness, and adaptability are alive in you, you become what Churchill was at his core, a force of strategic will. But strategy alone is not enough. Because every plan, no matter how brilliant, will eventually be tested. And when the test comes, there is only one question that remains. Will you stand? Pressure is the final battlefield. Not because it defeats most people, but because it reveals them. You don't rise to the level of your ambition under pressure. You fall to the level of your preparation. Churchill's strategies mattered, yes. His speeches, his vision, his discipline essential. But it was his resolve under pressure that defined him. Night after night, the sky over London was set on fire. Men died by the thousands. Parliament trembled. Nations collapsed. And yet, he stood. Not because he wasn't afraid, but because his mind was anchored. Strategic thinking is not just mental. It is emotional control under fire. It is the refusal to collapse internally when the world crumbles externally. This is what separates the planners from the conquerors. You want to think like Churchill. Then prepare not just for clarity and vision, but for adversity. Prepare for betrayal, for failure, for delay, for rejection. For moments when your logic breaks and your feelings scream give up. And in those moments, you don't need a new plan. You need resolve. The steel spine of conviction. The unshakable why. The disciplined mind that doesn't flinch. Pressure is not the enemy. It is the final piece of the process. It is what separates the strategic mind from the reactive one. It does not crush you. It refines you. It burns away the irrelevant. It reveals what's essential. And what's left Is the version of you capable of bending history? So here we are. 6 disciplines. Not tactics, not tricks, but mental weapons forged in the fire of reality, sharpened by history, and tested by men like Churchill, who did not have the luxury of wishful thinking, stillness, clarity, vision, purpose, discipline, adaptability. These are not options. They are not suggestions. They are requirements. If you are to lead not just yourself, but others through the fog, through the fire, through the fracture of whatever world you find yourself in. Churchill didn't ask to lead in crisis. He didn't hope for the burden of command. But when history knocked, he opened the door and walked through it like a man who understood. This is the hour for which I was built. And maybe that's you now. Maybe you've been waiting for certainty, waiting for momentum, waiting for a sign. Here it is. No one is coming. You are the strategist now. You are the mind that must stay clear while others drown in noise. You are the one who must rise not when it's easy, but exactly when it isn't. Strategic thinking is not cold intellect. It is fire-focused. It is emotion harnessed. It is chaos converted into calculated force. You are not too late. You are not too inexperienced. You are not too broken. Because Churchill wasn't perfect. He wasn't even popular until the bombs fell. But he was ready, not because he waited for the moment, but because he trained his mind for the moment. And so must you. No more reacting. No more drifting. No more apologizing for wanting to lead with power, with poise, with precision. Every battlefield, internal or external, waits for a commander. Be that commander. Train your stillness. Sharpen your clarity. See with vision. Move with purpose. Live by discipline. Adapt like water. Stand like stone. Because the world will try to shake you. But when you think strategically, you shape the world instead. So move, not because it's time. Move because you have become time. And as Churchill once roared from the shadows of a broken empire, we shall go on to the end. So must you. Let them bring the fire. You bring the mind.